Welcome to the Better People Podcast. Today, you'll be listening in on a conversation between cousins as Jansen, Hodge, and I discuss life after church hurt, life, and new beginnings. Remember, I believe that the fastest way to understanding is by listening. Welcome to the Better People Podcast. I am so excited to have my cousin, Jansen Hodge, on with us. I did send him I did kind of drop this little nugget a while ago and was like, would you be willing to come on the podcast? We had I don't know what we're going to talk about, but I am just so happy he's here. And I'm looking forward to engaging into this dialogue before you as we do it together. Truth be told, we haven't had many conversations since we found out that we're cousins. But the connection just hit immediately. And so I feel very comfortable bringing him on and want to learn more about him together with everyone who is listening. And so without further ado, Jansen Hodge. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
So, Jansen, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Let's see. I am the youngest son of the union of my parents, Betty and Willie Hodge Sr. They had 5 of us. I'm the youngest of 5. There are only 2 of us that are still living at this time. One died as a baby. And born and raised in Los Angeles. It ended up being a single parent household where my mother raised us by herself. My parents split up when my mother was pregnant with me.
Okay.
Which is why it's interesting that I took care of my dad. That's a whole nother story because I wasn't raised in a household with him.
Wow. Yeah.
Very timid, withdrawn kid. Had self-esteem issues, but always had a love for music and the arts. Big dreamer, dreams. Wanted to be a firefighter.
Oh.
At one point in time. That dream was shattered later on because I have raggedy knees. So I didn't even try after a certain point. I just but music was a big thing for me. I tried to be a singer, was in several groups, had some contracts dangled in my face, did some traveling as a background singer, and began to have a disdain for the industry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
People start playing with your money.
That'll do it. That'll do it.
It changes friendships. It changes all sorts of things, but music has been a big part of my life. I use music to speak for me.
Oh, nice.
I once upon a time would make CDs, even take cassettes to date myself for people. And I would tailor make cassettes for people geared to them. Okay. The stuff I believe that would speak to them, whether it would be secular or gospel. So, that's just something I had a passion for. And I still, today, there are times where I will send songs out to people and say, hey, I was led to sing you this. Listen to this,
Yeah.
And so grew up in LA, small church on the east side of Los Angeles. My grandfather was a deacon. His brother-in-law was the elder of the church, the head elder of the church. The church was a non-denominational church.
Okay.
But it had a mixture of things going on. It had Methodist roots underneath some of the things we did, like there's an Apostles' Creed that they do in Methodist churches. We had that at one point in time, the responsive readings. But the pastor that came in, he flipped it. He was actually Kojic.
Okay.
But he came in, he kind of did away with all the ritualistic kind of stuff. And it just became more, just basic level church.
So wait, did that change happen as you were going there at a certain age?
As I was going there.
Okay.
Yes. And my family made up half of that church.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'm around family in this church. And so I watched it change. My love for music grew in that church because we had an awesome choir. We one of the choir director, her name was Satira. This lady would play that piano like nobody's business.
Yeah.
And she would take singers that weren't really singers and was able to pull a song out of them
Okay.
to a place where you would enjoy the song, even with the fact that they weren't great singers.
I wanted somebody to pull a song out of me. And I just
It's
wish I could sing.
sang in the children's choir, youth ministry, became the vice president of youth ministry. My brother Darren, who's deceased, he died in '09. He was the president. And so we kind of did the youth ministry. I think I accepted the Lord in about 14,
Okay.
14 years old. And my brother and I attempted to do a study on backwards masking in music.
What is that?
So there's this thing in music where they were saying that they were putting messages in the music.
Oh, yes.
And if you play it backwards, you
Yes.
could hear the message. Like another one bites the dust. If you play it backwards, it says it's fun to smoke marijuana.
Okay. Yeah. You know what? I
So
remember that. I remember like they did a couple of things with Prince song too, right? So okay.
yes,
Okay, go ahead.
yeah, and they would say so a lot of little subliminal stuff, and we learned how in even in the what they call in the elevator music, the stores put low messages that you're hearing, buy more kind of stuff.
Really?
So the whole subliminal thing, yeah. And so we taught on that. And the pastor, he was like, okay, y'all opened up a door. So I'm gonna have to pray for you. And he
Okay.
prayed and he covered us. And by the time I hit 18, I knew that there was a call on my life and I didn't want it.
Mm.
And I took off out the door. I ran from the church. I was like, I'm not, I saw what pastors dealt with. I didn't want to deal with it.
Yeah.
And so I was gone.
Yeah.
But it's funny, you can't run from God. My life for the next 3 years, I, I just kept going around in circles.
Yeah.
Everything I tried some music stuff, collapsed. Tried a few other things, and everything I put my hands to, it just kept falling apart.
Wow.
Somebody told me, until you go back to God, none of that stuff is going to prosper. It's nothing coming of it.
Yeah.
And then a friend invited me to Faithful Central.
So how many years did it take before you finally understood, okay, I need to return?
Three,
Okay, 3 years. Okay.
3 years.
That's pretty quick.
Yeah.
Well, maybe
Yeah.
it didn't feel quick for you,
It
but
didn't feel quick.
okay.
But I still was running from the calling, even though I was back in church.
Okay.
Came back to church, but I still just was struggling with, you know, saying yes.
Okay. Now tell
You
me,
know,
what was it? Why were you? I know you said that you understood what pastors went through, but because the same thing happened with Rudy, my husband, originally he just wanted to be an elder. Um, but the calling, he kept being called to, more than that and more. And but he was really running from it. He didn't want to have anything to do with it. And but what for you was the thing where you were like, no, I don't want this?
I was able to. And the interesting thing is, God always allowed me to have pastor friends.
Hmm.
I always ended up with friends that was pastors, and so I would hear the stories, and I would see some of the stuff up close and personal. I was like, I don't deal with that. And these
Yeah. Yeah.
people can be
Yeah.
cruel and
Yes.
manipulative,
Yeah.
and I didn't want the heartache that went with it.
Yeah.
But at some point, I got tired of running and found myself, I don't want to do this no more. I found myself saying, yes, whatever you want me to do.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting here in my head saying, is this coming out of your mouth?
Yeah.
But by that time, I was 30.
Okay.
I was
Okay.
30 years old when I finally said yes, and that I had become a deacon in the church by that point in time. Started some ministerial prep classes at the church. And, it got easier because there was a pastor friend of mine that gave me a scripture and I lean on that scripture, Philippians 1:6. Being confident of this very thing, that he who began a good work in you will complete unto the day of Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, you're gonna it's work that continues to happen until he comes back. So you're never gonna be perfect. You just gotta roll with it. And so I was waiting to be better. I was waiting to be a better version of myself. And I didn't think I was qualified to be anybody's pastor.
Yeah.
But or even somebody's minister speaking from a pulpit, because I haven't pastored a church.
Okay.
Now I do have my own ministry.
Okay.
Called Living Vine.
Well, tell us a little bit about that.
Living Vine came out of my wife Carla and I. It was birthed out of us leaving the churches we were a part of, joined up with a friend's church for a period of time, and we knew it was time for us to leave there, and he sent us out.
Okay.
To go do ministry abroad, like in homes, in the streets. And we would go to the mall and sit and have Bible study. We would go to the beach. We would just go different places to first at first we were trying to fill it out and we were trying to see what it was like. And it was like, Venice Beach, not so great. It was a mess.
Yeah.
Then we landed in the mall. And so what we did is we would just sit and start having Bible study in the food court of the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Plaza.
Meaning it would be you and your wife and then others?
Me, my wife, Kevin, and a friend, Tamara.
Okay.
And we would sit and we would have Bible study, and people would sometimes stop by to see what we were talking about. And conversations would brew. And out of that, we ended up doing something from our home. And by free conference call, we would have people that would dial in. There were people that would show up, and we'd have Bible study and prayer here in our home. We did it for 6 years. Now, this is the clincher. Most of the people that showed up were people that experienced church hurts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so we had experienced them ourselves.
Yeah.
And here we are ministering to people who had church hurts.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was interesting how God used that. And on the opposite end of that, all of those people are back in churches.
Yeah, that's awesome. Now they're back in church because you would say that what your ministry did was created an opportunity for them to heal, to communicate about it. That's awesome. Because that's not normal, meaning there's not a lot of ministries that deal with that actually can put people in positions to actually return. My experience is that people experience this hurt, and they kind of wrestle with this alone for a long time. They might tap back into church, but they're usually doing it alone.
Yes. And so we had a community of folks, and we just stood with each other and we prayed with each other. And I guess being that we had both experienced some hurts ourselves from ministries that we're a part of, it made it easier for us to minister to them based on what we had been dealing with ourselves.
Yeah.
So it's no joke to be disappointed by folks you love and think they care about you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, Rudy and I, not too long ago, just went through a situation. I know, we were over at UCC, and that wasn't our first experience with church hurt. But I think one of the things that I don't know if surprising is the right word, but you develop so many friendships inside of a church. And when things kind of fall apart, you find out who really were your true friends.
Yeah.
And when you enter into it, and for us, obviously he was the pastor and I was the first lady. And I've always been a different kind of first lady, so nothing traditional about the way that I engage the world or people. And so a lot of them were really, in my heart, my friends. But when betrayal happened, because that's ultimately what brought everything down, was the associate pastor was, I don't even know what the man was up to, man. I really don't know, but it was wild. He betrayed Rudy, and the betrayal was really just that he was just doing things behind his back. And we found out later that he was talking to the elders. We still don't know it to this point what he was saying, but it created a major problem.
When you guys were over there, because Carla and I kept talking, we're going to come, and you was like, hold off.
Yeah, yeah, we were
Stuff
there.
was going on.
It was we had a really good time while we were there. But when it got bad, it got bad. I mean, anytime you find out that somebody's got, a knife in your back and you had no idea, because um my husband is probably, and I know I'm biased, but he is the kindest man alive. Sometimes I'll be like, babe, maybe
I
not.
can see it. I can
Yeah,
see it.
yeah,
He has a sweet spirit.
he really does. He's so kind.
Yes.
He really loves people. And he doesn't, especially at that point, he doesn't have many suspicions about people, because he just takes people where they are, you know. And part of that has come from, past church hurt, being judged, as the preacher's brother, because his brother was our pastor for a long time. And so he loves people in that way. But anyway, all that to say, we experienced some church hurt there. And to find out, I said all that to say, you find out who your friends are, you know?
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
You
And
do.
that's probably been the most painful part for us. I mean, no one has done anything to harm us as much as you just like, oh, wow, we we don't talk anymore.
Yeah.
We don't really
And
do.
it's sad that something like that can put a wedge in relationships.
Yeah, it is. And so, I do understand people go through what they go through. And I also have accepted that, every single situation and scenario that happens in our lives is for our learning. And so
Yeah.
we have something to learn.
Maybe the season was over
Yeah,
for those relationships.
yeah. And I mean, it's been good after that too. I mean, Rudy is now a director up at Pepperdine University, and he's loving the work that he does over there. And so it wouldn't
Been
have
watching.
been, huh?
Yeah. I've been watching.
Yeah.
I pay attention. I see when stuff pops. We go, Rudy.
Yeah. So I mean, when you think about your church hurt, Jansen, was it as a child? Was it as an adult? Like, when did it happen?
As an adult.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I was, and anybody that hears this is going to know where it happened, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
I was the youth minister at church. Prior to that, when I went back, when I left Faithful Central, I went back to a particular church, and the pastor there loved this man. He just put me to work. He allowed me to do whatever I wanted to do. I was running a soundboard.
Yeah.
I was teaching Sunday school. He gave me the youth ministry. And whenever there was a fifth Sunday, I preached on that Sunday. So he was developing me.
Okay.
Well, he retired. And
Okay.
so they had to pull up another person. Now that person became the pastor, and I knew the person. And so things started changing. I was also assisting to direct the choir. No longer directing the choir anymore after they came in, they put somebody else in place. Although I was over the youth ministry, there were other leaders for the different groups. We had them broken up by age. They got to decide who they wanted to speak on Youth Sunday. They didn't have to go through me. They did what they wanted to do. I became the person that signed off for them to get reimbursed when they spent their own money. I was running the sound ministry, doing that, and then at some point was taking some classes from the pastor being developed. And one day they came up and they said, I'm going to have to stop this indefinitely.
What?
Yeah, just out of the blue. And I'm like, okay, wow. And my brother was still alive at the time, and I told him about it, and he was pissed. He was like, "Bruh, what's going on?" I mean, we led the young adult men together, my brother and I.
Yeah.
And so it got to the point where I was sitting in the back of the church because I started letting stuff go. I would listen for a squeak on the mic. I wasn't hearing the word. I wasn't hearing the music. I was just there embodying.
Yeah.
And I knew it was time to go.
Yeah.
And I went to him and I told him it was time for me to go. And one of the things he said to me, I feel like was one of the most insulting things you could say to a person is,
You've been listening to a conversation between cousins regarding church hurt. For part 2, please subscribe so that you receive the notification once it is uploaded. And remember, the fastest way to understanding is by listening.